right, time to do an application style problem. Let's go ahead and get to the examples. Now that we've covered adding and subtracting and multiplying, we can put these together to find the area of some polygons. So you've got to use your multiplying skills that you did before, but we're going to find the area of this triangle. So remember, the formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 times the base times the height. The base in this case is 5 root 15. The height is the square root of 15. So when I write my formula, I'm going to have 1/2 times the base is 5 plus the square root of 15. The height is the square root of 15. Okay? Now, what I typically do, and this is just my preference, your teacher may feel differently, I usually leave this 1/2 sort of out in front and don't mess with it. What I like to do first is take this square root of 15 and distribute it, preferably with a skinnier pen, but distribute that into this binomial here and just leave the 1/2 out front until the very end. Okay, so I'm going to manipulate what's inside, get that all nice and simplified, which makes sense. Your order of operations says to deal with parentheses first. So I'm going to go ahead and say the square root of 15 times 5 is 5 root 15, because remember there's an understood 1 here. And then the square root of 15 times the square root of 15, I would multiply what's inside, and I get the square root of 225. All right. Then I'm going to go ahead and simplify what's under that radical. So I've got 1/2 times 5 root 15 plus 225 times 225, 225 breaks down into 15 times 15. I know that because that's what I just multiplied to get 225. I'm not going to keep going to get my pairs of 3s and 5s because I already see a pair right there. And there's nothing else left in there. So that means that the square root of 225 is just 15. So what I have now is 1/2 times 5 root 15 plus 15. Now I would need to distribute that 1/2. That would be my next step. When I do that, I'm going to get some decimals. So you kind of have options at this point. One way you might see this answer is you might actually just see it written as 1/2 times 5 root 15 plus 15. Sometimes you might see a person write that 1/2 as a fraction, and they would say, okay, I've got 5 root 15 plus 15, and all of that is divided by 2. That would mean the same thing. In one case, you're multiplying by 1/2. In another case, you're dividing by 2. That's the same thing. Or they could actually do that multiplication. They could say, all right, that means I've got 5 divided by 2 root 15 plus 15 divided by 2, and they could leave it as fractions. Or they could give you a decimal answer. You could have 5 divided by 2 as a decimal is 2.5 root 15 plus 15 divided by 2 is 7.5 or 7.5. Or we could ask you to give us a decimal approximation. If you are asked for a decimal approximation, let's pull my calculator back up. What I would do is I would say 2.5, get it in whichever form you like it, doesn't really matter, and then just type it in. So I'm going to use the decimals because I don't have the fancy calculator with the fraction button right now. If I were using the yellow calculators at school, I would definitely use fractions. I would probably put in this form, and you can ask me or your teacher or whoever to show you how to put that in the calculator all at once and get a nice pretty answer. But for me, this is what I've got. So I'm going to put 2.5, and then I'm going to put times the square root of 15. It's got a little display up here to make sure I'm putting it in right. All right, plus 7.5. 7.5. And that gives me this approximately, because I'm going to round it, approximately 17 and 1800ths units squared. Remember, anytime you are finding area, you are looking for square units. Okay, so there's lots of different ways you might be asked to give an answer on these kinds of problems. Make sure you read the instructions carefully to make sure you know whether you're supposed to be giving decimal approximations or exact answers. If you are asked for exact answers, be prepared, especially if it's multiple choice. You could see any of these options. They all mean the same thing. If it's a decimal approximation, you're really just only going to see that one value. All right, you guys go ahead and try an example. You don't have to deal with the 1/2 issue here. You're just doing base times height or length times width. So go ahead and try that, and then make sure that you check your answer in the key provided. This is the last video of the lesson, so once you're finished, you can go ahead and move straight into your practice. Make sure as you're going through the practice that you check your answers, ask us questions if you need it, and let us know if you're ready to go on to the mastery check. Bye guys, I'll see you later.